Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul and I will present or explain two material. The first is about what is the inductive model, and the second material is when should the inductive model be applied and why. Without any further ado, let me explain the first material. What is the inductive model? So, the inductive model is an active and changing model of instruction that encourages student development of critical thinking skills as they explore and learn concepts in the academic concentrates and the facts associated with these concepts. There are some example concepts in the academic subject areas. Those are art, language arts, mathematics, music, health or physical education, social studies, and science. The inductive model is so named because of its reliance on inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is a kind of thinking that involves making generalization through examination and analysis of particular examples. It's commonly associated with the teaching of math and science and is integral to learning in all disciplines. Next. Okay, what are the history of origins of the inductive model? So, Sir Francis Bacon trained as a lawyer but was also considered a philosopher. He challenged common philosophy of deductive reasoning developed by Aristotle in his work Novum Organum. Of note is that, contrary to deductive reasoning where conclusions are considered the truth, in inductive reasoning is not. The conclusion might not be true even though the premise leading to the conclusion. What are the convergent and divergent thinking? So, before examining the phases in inductive model, it is important to explore two types of thinking. Those are the convergent and divergent. Convergent and divergent have essential role in the model's various phases. The open-ended phase, which involves divergent thinking, and the convergent phase, which involves the focusing of thinking. In educational terms, we might consider divergent thinking as a search that uncovers several answers, and convergent thinking as thinking through to one correct answer. The inductive model supports both types of thinking through its progressive steps that promote the exploration of ideas, meaning making, and deep learning. We move to the second material. When should the inductive model be applied and why? So, okay, the inductive model may be used when teaching content from any of the academic disciplines. This model has long been used in science and math, but is an incredibly valuable tool in any subject area. It can be effectively used to teach concepts, encourage students to develop critical thinking skills, develop pattern recognition and data identification, and assess understanding of concepts. Let me explain the first one. Teach concepts. So, inductive model is best applied when teaching concepts and the fact associated with this concept. The quality of examples and non-examples is critical to the success of this model because the student examination of the similarities, differences, and patterns observed in these items will form the basis of their comprehension of a concept. If with examples are selected, students will not successfully understand the concept they are supposed to be learning. The second is develop critical thinking. So the inductive model develops student critical thinking by requiring them to practice observation, recognizing of patterns and identification of the type through their examination of samples and non-examples. The last one is assess student understanding and concepts. The inductive model is well suited for assessing how well students have mastered a concept they have already learned. The teacher uses the model to determine how well students understand, and after introducing the objective of the assessment, the teacher asks students to share their observation. She then questions. After this process of divergent and convergent questioning, the teacher invites students to find or create other examples of the material. In this way, the teacher identifies what students have come to know and understand. Maybe that's all from me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
My name is Siska Andesti, and I would like to give an explanation about the steps in the inductive models. So the first step is we call it as lesson introduction. During this phase, the teacher introduces the main objectives and procedures for the lessons. As the inductive model lesson shows, like during this phase, the teacher typically explains that student will examine various materials that will help them think about the content that is being explored. And then the second step is divergent pace. We know this also as an open-ended pace, where the student examined and compared the examples and non-examples introduced to them. They make observations about them and attempt to recognize characteristics and patterns in what they see. In here, teacher can facilitate learning during this phase by asking the questions that require students to justify any conclusion they draw about the pattern identified in the examples. All questioning should be divergent and open-ended, not just yes or no questions. So in here means we as the teacher can ask kinds of questions to our students which make them think, like it require critical thinking, not just like yes or no answer or just a single word, which means that the student is not thinking at all. If we just ask like do you know about this, and just they just answer is as yes, but we need to make an equation something like what do you think about this, and of course it will make them think about it, and so that is not just a yes or no question. The third step is convergent pace. We also call it as closed pace of the inductive model, which involves challenging students to focus their thinking on the concept that is being examined. Um, in here, the teacher in a questioning is critical to ensuring the students are performing the type of thinking will help them attain desired understanding of the content being studied. During this phase, teacher questioning should be convergent. That is, the questioning should help learners connect or combine information gleaned through examination, of the content to form a precise understanding of the content. So the question should be asked with the goal of helping students discover the concept-specific attributes. We can ask the student about, like today we learned about this material, so we can ask them to connect this material with the previous material, so it can make them to think critically, and it will help them a lot. The fourth step is closure. This is one of the main goals of the inductive model. The one of the goal is to challenge students to develop their own definition and understanding of the content being studied. the closure pace, in this pace, we provide the student with the opportunity to demonstrate their understanding of the content and concept in any number of ways. So in here, for example, we as the teacher can ask them to make the definitions of a concept that is being taught. We can ask them to act it out or make like a picture, like they can do anything what we ask them to do. And we can also compare one student to other students understanding about what is this about this concept, to make them share the same definitions in one classroom. And the last page, we call it applications. In application, as we know, many other models that include an application page. Um, the purpose of this page is twofold. The first one, we can demonstrate the knowledge that we gained, as well as apply it in novel ways or situations. So in this article, they use like novel, and then in the last page they ask their student to write like a novel with the Shakespearean models, or in English sonnet, and the teacher asks the student to post it to a wiki or to a website. So in here the student will learn about real life scenarios or real life situations. um Here we have the table of the teacher roles and the student roles in inductive model steps. As you can see in lesson instruction, the teacher explained that student will examine various examples representing the content, while the students listen and become interested in the lesson. And in the divergent pace, the teacher presents student with examples and non-examples, asks open-ended questions that stimulate student exploration and support, and then the student examined and compared the example and non-example represented in a divergent manner. And in convergent pace, the teacher asks questions or provides other materials that challenge students. And then the students examine and compare the examples and non-examples. And in closure pace, the teacher presents opportunities for students to demonstrate the learning of their concept, and the student demonstrate the learning and of the concept. And in the last page, in application, the teacher challenges learners to apply their learning to real life scenarios, while the students apply their learning and their knowledge to real life scenarios. And I think that's all from me. Thanks for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Annisa Najamuddin from class B and from group 8. So I would like to continue the material about inductive model, and I will explain to you all about the inductive model look like in the classroom. So it consists of 3 scenario, which are scenario 8.1, and then scenario 8.2, and then scenario 8.3. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me explain it in bahasa in order we can easily understand what I say. Okay, so the first is skenario 81. Jadi skenario 81 ini menceritakan contoh dari guru yang memberikan banyak bentuk bangunan persegi panjang, kemudian membiarkan siswa untuk menganalisa apa perbedaan dari satu bangunan, satu gambar kebangunan yang lain, kemudian berapa jumlah sudut dari persegi panjang itu. Guru sebagai fasilitator hanya bertanya, kemudian yang dijawab dan dianalisa oleh siswa. Jadi ini inductive model ini dapat memicu keaktifan siswa dalam pelajaran dan mengurangi partisipasi guru. Dalam hal ini memberikan siswa kesempatan untuk lebih aktif, karena guru hanya sebagai fasilitator dan menanyakan, dan siswa yang menganalisa dan menjawab dengan jelas. Kemudian skenario 82 yaitu membentuk kelompok dengan isi siswa yang heterogen, artinya siswa dengan kemampuan berbeda akan disatukan dengan satu satu kelompok agar mereka dapat saling melengkapi. Jadi semisal ada pertanyaan yang sulit untuk dijawab, satu orang ini akan menjadi pengarah untuk teman-temannya yang lain, dan teman-temannya yang lain dapat belajar untuk ke temannya yang mahir pada topik tersebut. Kemudian yang terakhir, skenario 83, yaitu berbentuk semacam penelitian. Jadi guru memberikan penelitian, memerintahkan kepada siswa untuk membuat penelitian, kemudian sebelum itu mencari artikel-artikel atau penelitian sebelumnya, kemudian menelaah bagaimana plagiarisme dan sebagainya, agar siswa itu dapat dengan kreatif melakukan penelitiannya sendiri tanpa ada unsur plagiarisme. Jadi plagiarisme adalah unsur yang harus antisipasi sebelum terjadi. Jadi sebelum itu guru akan memberikan pemahaman tentang plagiarisme, kemudian akan dieksekusi oleh siswanya. Selanjutnya, itulah tadi 3 skenario dari inductive model di dalam kelas, dan guru diharapkan dapat memilih sesuai dengan kebutuhannya masing-masing. 3 metode ini diharapkan dapat menjadi awal untuk siswa dan guru berinteraksi, serta untuk meningkatkan keaktifan siswa. Dan semoga teman-teman semua bisa peka untuk melihat realitas sosial yang terjadi di dalam kelas, sehingga bisa memilih skenario manakah yang lebih cocok untuk digunakan. Mungkin itu saja penjelasan dari saya. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya serahkan kepada presenter selanjutnya, yaitu Charles.
Okay, so hello everyone, my name is Charles and I will explain planning for teaching with the inductive model. The second is differentiating instruction with the inductive model, and the last one is the benefits of applying the inductive model. Okay, so now I will just explain planning for teaching with the inductive model. Okay, so teachers who carefully plan their use of the inductive model will enjoy its implementation all the more. They will be better able to respond to unanticipated student needs as they arise. So, planning for teaching with inductive model should involve selecting and organizing access to source materials. Second is conducting assessment. The third is developing divergent and convergent questions, and the last one is planning for closure and application. Okay, so selecting and organizing access to source materials. So teachers using the inductive model in contemporary classrooms have a vast array of materials available to support and enrich their implementation. As with other models that promote comprehension of concepts, the quality of example use has a dramatic influence on students' success mastering the content. Before selecting examples, teachers should list the critical and variable attributes of the content presented. Okay. Next is conducting assessment. Okay, so teachers should consider how they will conduct pre-assessment, formative assessment, and summative assessment of students' learning. The third is developing divergent and convergent questions. Okay, so quality questions, those that will lead students to engage in divergent and convergent thinking effectively, are critical to the model's success. A teacher must be both familiar with the concept under investigation and clear about the goals for students' mastery when developing questions. The divergent questions are open-ended and do not have one right answer. Meanwhile, convergent questions or closed questions have specific answers that are either right or wrong. Okay. The last one is planning for closure and application. Okay, so plans for closure and application are important to devise before implementing an inductive model lesson. Figuring out appropriate activities for these two phases will not only help teachers plan instruction for all of the inductive model spaces, but also enables the teacher to ensure that the implementation effectively meets anticipated learning goals. Okay, so now I will explain differentiating instruction with the inductive model. So the inductive model, like most models in this book, is ambitious in its very design and includes plans to develop students' capabilities in ways that are both breed on deep. However, achieving this in actual practice can be challenging. Also, such challenges can be counteractive if there is no support to address learner differences, or if the support is inappropriately matched with learners' needs. For the inductive model to be beneficial, consideration must be paid to learner differences and how they might be bolstered. Okay, so the sections that follow explain how the model effectively develops the potential of learners with different needs when they are supported and guided in responsive ways. Okay, so the first one is the content. Okay, so built into the inductive model is an opportunity to provide learners with rich content materials. The authentic nature of materials used in the inductive model makes them more meaningful than those that might be presented in typical instructional materials. The second is the process. The inductive model's greatest strength is also one of its greatest challenges. It situates practice of two completely different types of thinking. Divergent and convergent thinking is a back-to-back manner. After using the model even once, teachers will recognize that some learners have a natural strength practicing convergent thinking and that others have greater aptitude with divergent thinking. Some of the students will find both types of thinking to be challenging. Okay, and last things that we must consider is the product. So in the inductive model, the teachers tend to use the application and closure steps to gain information about students' learning for assessment. Differentiating assessment in this model involves providing students options for expressing their learning, offering choices of how and which tools students might use for demonstrating their learning, allows students to select the product best suited to showcase their learning. Okay. So what are the next material is what are the benefits of applying the inductive model. Okay, so the benefits of applying the inductive model are foster and scaffolds inductive and critical thinking skill. The second is engage learners in identifying patterns and differences. The third is supports numerous thinking styles. The next is promotes deep learning. Next is allows students to demonstrate their own learning, and the last one is provides students the opportunity to apply their learning. Okay, so I think that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Bismillah, I'm Asmi and I'm going to deliver the last material. So there are two materials. The first one is inductive model lesson plan. So let's take a look at the outline. So this is the outline that we need to make an inductive model lesson plan. So on the left side, we can see the steps of inductive models lesson plan, and the right side, we can see the inductive model lesson. So what they're going to do in this lesson. So in the steps, we can see there are 5 steps. The first one is lesson introduction, divergent phase, convergent phase, closure, and application. So let's take a look at the lesson plan that we made from an outline, from that outline before in the previous slide. So in this lesson plan, we can see the goals, so what student going to do. And then we have the standards for this lesson. And then we have the objectives, so the goals of this lesson. And then we have the estimate time, so how many time that will take the lesson will take. And then what kind of materials that we're going to need. And then the last material, we have differentiation strategies for inductive model lesson. So there are three elements of the curriculum that can be differentiated. And the first one is content. So content is related to the facts, concepts, generalizations, or principles, attitudes, and skills related to the subject that we're going to learn. And then we have process. So process is how the learner comes to make sense of or understand and own the key facts, concepts, generalizations, and skills of the subject. And then the last one is we have product. So product is an item or items that student can use to demonstrate what he or she has come to know, understand, and be able to do as a result of an extended period of study. So student characteristics for which teacher can differentiate our readiness, interest, and learning profile. So instructional strategies that facilitate differentiations include learning centers, interest groups in investigation, complex instruction, compacting, learning contracts, tiered activities, and third products. So every teacher differentiates in structure in one way or another. For example, by giving a student more time to finish an assignment. That's all I think for me. Thank you. If there is a mistake, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.